all sewed up. Isn't that pretty? I want to show you something that's super pretty. Is you see this seam right here? Isn't that beautiful? Aren't I talented? I didn't have to sew that. I sewed the whole thing shut. Fortunately, I must have gotten into some sort of trance or something and did not realize you didn't have to sew that. I'll show you why. Let me put this down and make sure that we're all into the same shot here. Okay, now what you're seeing, this is going to be the inside. And I'll show you on this right here. See, this is what is outside on the one I just sewed. Now in order to turn this inside out, you have to have something to pull it through. And this is the seam right here that you sew after you pull everything out. So I'm going to have to pop this knot that I made, and then all this beautiful stitching I did is going to be pulled out, and then I'll turn this inside out, and then this will sit flat, like something like this, and you make your cuts, and I'll show you how to do that as well. And then you sew up the back, and you put your little heel pucker in there. That's pucker with a P, by the way. And sew your little pull on, and sew your little tongue in. And I might even go so far as to, just because this is my daughter's, I took a little, it was a curved piece, I don't know what they call it. It's got a, it's for measuring, and they use it in graphing. I don't have one. I took my daughter's from her school bag and used it. I don't have it. So I'll try something else, some circumference from something else, just to make it look. I like the looks of this as opposed to mine, which is just flat. There's flat and it comes up, and it's flat here too. This you can see is kind of curved, where mine would come straight and straight down at a 90-degree angle. This is just a little bit more pleasing to the eye, or aesthetically pleasing, as people say. So we have one more thing. Oh, also I wanted to show you here where I broke the needle. That was super fun. Right there the needle broke. So I had to switch to this big ass needle right here. I don't even know if that's for carpet or what, but I got to tell you, pushing that through this leather was, I'm not going to say like giving birth, because I don't know what that is, of course, or what that feels like, of course. But it was pretty tough to push that through that leather. So I've got to order some more Glover needles. That's what it was called, the one that I broke. And the one that I broke, which was odd, is I didn't break it in half. I broke it right at that point right there, right where the eye is and meets the needle. It broke while I was pulling it through. So I'm thinking that I should have 2 or 3 needles on hand at all times, just in case if one breaks. But I'm going to show you how I tie this off. Now, people say to put a knot in it, and I can never get the knot tight enough. I'm going to use this awl to point with. I can never get the knot tight enough down here. It just never gets tight enough. I always end up tying off the knot and trying to push it down even with the surface, and it ends up that the knot's hanging out way up here, and it just, well, now it's not going to work. Then it's a big pain in the butt. So let me push this needle through. By push it through, I mean I've been using a pair of pliers to yank it through, because there's no way that I can do it with my piggies. So pull it through, and I'm telling you, you can see, there it goes. That is really some tough going right there. So you can see that I've got the loop right there, and on the last couple you want to do that knot thing. So you have your little loop coming through the top. I think I'm in a picture, and go through there, and that just makes it nice and tight there. Pull it, and you can see that I pulled some hair through that one, so I try to get the hair out of there. I may have a little hair on the toe right there on the exterior of it. Okay, pull it tight. I usually give it 10 good yanks. Not yanky enough so you can pull it through the leather. I don't know how strong some of you are out there, but if you pull hard enough, you'll pull this piece of thread right through the leather. Don't do that. That adds to work. You don't want to add work if you can help it. So I just give it just 10 good yanks. And also, I'm going to try to show you this on camera too, how I tie this off, because it works really well. It's a square knot. I saw another YouTuber do it, but not, they were using shoes, and these aren't shoes, these are moccasins, and I've never seen someone use it on a moccasin. So let me see what the heck is going on with my needle here. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm going to use my Kung Fu camouflage scissors here to cut this. These are my son's scissors. I just yanked them. I don't know where all the others. If you have kids and you have scissors, one of them will disappear, and it's usually the scissors. they take them, and Lord knows where they do with them. So cut it like that. This end right here will be the one that you leave laying. And I'm just going to pull this out because there's something going on with my thread up there too. I think I had it go in and on itself, so let's see if we can get that out. I got a little knot in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this super simple. We're just going to cut it. Now the problem I usually run into is that I run out of thread. With doing it the way that a lot of people do it, with tying a knot and trying to push the knot down to the surface, I just can never get it. And I've tried to watch how people do it, and I just can never get it. So I do it like this. Now that I just have, you saw me put the knot in there and I cut it off. So here's your two ends. Set one end to the side, and with this particular piece of thread, it's separated into two. It doesn't matter. It's really strong. Sometimes it does that. This was one piece of thread when I started. So I do that. See how I got that? If I can get a hold of, there it is. Look how that's bent too from using it. That thing is just, it's a wreck now. So then what I do is I go back to the last stitch, push it through. So I don't know if you can, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this. I'll try to get it in the camera here. Push it through. Just like that. And make sure that your thread's hanging through the eye. And I think I'll be able to pull this with my hand. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. There. Now you're through there. Now you can do a square knot, see? And you don't have to play grab ass all day trying to get a knot through there and end up with a, sometimes I'd end up with a half of an inch piece of thread, and you're trying to tie a knot in it, and it's just like, my God, this is just like torture. I can't get it. So there's the first part of my square knot. There's the second part of my square knot. Just a hand over hand knot. Just like that. Just like that. There we go. And I always do one more just because I'm a little concerned that it's never going to stay. Although square knots are notoriously tight knots, they usually don't come out. There we go. And we'll be pounding the seam flat once we turn it inside out. So I'm going to cut this off with my groovy camouflaged scissors. Set everything aside here. So this is what that looks like. You can see that I did get a little bit of hair in that. See how it pulled through? But if you can see, I didn't get any hair in all of them. I was really careful trying to keep the hair out of actually the stitch. I didn't want to pull it through with a stitch. So we'll cut this knot off if I can here. Wow, some tough stuff. The old camouflage scissors almost couldn't handle it. This is where I usually stab myself too. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull this whole doggone beautiful stitch job. That is a beautiful, not to brag about it, but that is a beautiful stitch job. That's all hand done, and that's because of the process of laying it out. If you lay it out properly, I'm telling you, it'll look just fabulous. And not that I'm that excited about it, but no, actually I am kind of excited about it. It looked nice. It looked just so nice that I get to tear it all out. But if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it, right? So just kind of work that. And it took me probably about an hour and 15 minutes to do the stitching on this, mainly because I broke the needle, and that took time. You break a needle and you have to get a new piece of thread, and you have to get a new needle, and I didn't have a new needle, so I had to use the monster needle, which is basically way too big for what I was trying to do. It was just too thick. It's not designed. The Glover's needle is sharp on the sides, so it will go through the leather a lot easier. This is not sharp at all. I mean, it's sharp at the tip, but there's no. The Glover's has three sides, and they're all sharp, so it'll hit the leather and actually cut it a little bit, and then allow the needle to go through. This was not designed for what I'm using it for. But that's the biggest thing I got to worry about today. That's not too bad, is it? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that off because I do not need to continue to pull that much thread through there. Ooh, I almost stabbed myself in the crotch with it. I dropped it and snagged it off my lap. By the way, that goes without saying, is be careful if you're dealing with scratch owl. You drop it, it can really do some damage. So I don't think you really want to watch me do this all. So I'm going to put it on pause, and I'll be back as soon as I start turning her inside out. Okay, so as you can see, I've broken that seal all the way back, and we're going to use the same square knot that I used before, mainly because I cannot tie a knot and push it down to the surface and feel confident that it's not going to move on me. So there we are. See how we have one side right there, and the other side is through the eye. We're going to find the last stitch like this. I don't know how much you can see of that. And it seems how you're forcing the needle towards your hand. Be very careful, otherwise you'll donate some blood. And this will pull it through. There we go. And now it's through that first stitch right there, see? I don't know if you can see. I'll try to get it close. And now what I'm going to do is do the old square knotty. Very simple hand over hand once. And why don't I get that in the shot so you can see? We'll start over. Right there. We do a square knot, which is just a hand over hand. Just like this. With these things, with this thread coming apart and going into 2 or 3 pieces, it makes it a little difficult, but not impossible. So there's the first part. Do the second part. Just like that. Just like that. And I always do, like I said, one more, just for cheese and grins. There we go. See that? I'm gonna get my camouflage scissors. Bingo. So we broke that seam. That probably took me 20 minutes to sew. And you can see that that's the inside, which is actually going to be the outside, because I'm going to turn her inside out. And turning it inside out is exactly what it sounds like, and it is a pain in the ass, because you gotta force this thing out and on itself. And it took me, I think, 10 minutes to do the other one, and it's just constantly pulling and pushing and pulling and pushing, and it doesn't seem like it's ever going to go, and then pop, suddenly it'll go. Just like that. There, it's starting. Just like that. And you push it through on itself, and it hurts your thumbs and it hurts your fingers. But you only have to do it once, which is nice. See how that's starting to turn in on itself? And what I'll do is, I'm not going to do it on the camera. You don't want to watch me push this for 10 minutes, I'm sure. And pretty soon you'll be able to go inside here and grab the tip and start pulling it and working it with your and working it back with your hands. So I'll put on pause and I'll show you what I got inside out. And you can see where I stopped using the Glover's needle. This is the completed. I'm gonna lift this up a second. This is the completed moccasin right here, and you can see the stitching right there is pretty fine. And you can see the stitching right there is pretty fine. And then I hit the Glover's. Or no, not the Glover's, excuse me. I hit the fat needle, and I don't know if that was for carpet or what, but there's definitely a big change, which is okay. These are just slippers for my daughter, but live and learn. I know now that I for sure want to use a Glover's needle, and I for sure want to use a lot thinner thread. In other words, when I'm ripping the thread off, and I'll show you the thread, I'll get it, and show you how you peel pieces off. But now what I have to do is I have to flatten the seam. And to do that, I use these right here. I use a large wrench. I use that part right there, box end. Let me get some of this thread out of the way. I got a bunch of thread laying here. And then of course I use a hammer. And you don't want a hammer with sharp edges. You want a hammer whose face is tampered at the end and tapered. And that's what I have. So what you do is you take this guy right here and you insert into your moccasin. And I start at the toe, the big toe. They're all toes at the end, but the big toe. Like so, see? And now I have the wrench back here, up in there like that. and you just tap it with a hammer to flatten it out. And just to show you, usually what I do is I'll set it on something firm, on the ground, or by it I mean I'll set the edge of this down like this. So let's get it a little bit away from me here. Set it down on something. Right now it's down on the table, towel on the table, and then it goes up into the moccasin, and then I'll pound all the way around, all the way down the side, and then that'll flatten the seam out. So I'm going to do that a second, and I'll bring the camera back over. Let's take a look at what it looks like before it's pounded. See if we can even notice a difference. It's just for the comfort of your toes, and for anything that'll come in contact with that seam. So I'm going to put it on pause a second. I'll come back. Okay, we've got someone who's willing to hold the camera while and what I've done is this is 4 layers of towel, 5, 6 layers of towel over so it doesn't damage your table. And you just tap it. I'm not hitting it very hard. Then you move your wrench inside. Now the wrench is right here. I don't know if you can see the outline of that. And you just tap it. Move the wrench a little bit. And then you tap it. By the way, if your fingers are not hurting and your thumb is not hurting by this time, you're not doing it right, because your fingers and thumbs and hands should be hurting. And I'll just continue this all the way around. And try not to hit the edge of your wrench, because that can damage your leather, and that's not what you want to do at this point. After you're this far, you don't want to damage it. And then I continue all the way around the side. It's like that. And you can really see the difference between both of those needles that I used. And what this will do is lie that seam down, and I can show you how see how that seam is just puckered. I don't know how much you can really see of that, but you can feel that it's puckered up in there, and that's what we don't want. We don't want someone's foot to hit that and your toes to hit that. So go ahead and put her back on pause, and we'll bring it out as soon as I'm done. We've got her all pounded out, and you can see the experiment that I did. Number 1 was I used a lot finer thread. See if that thing there goes. Look at that. On the first moccasin that is complete. And this is the second thread. Give her a second to catch up with us. And you can see, I think you can see, I don't know if you can see that, but you can see that the thread is much, much heavier gauge thread on the second moccasin. And this is the second pair of moccasins that I've made. This is what they look like side by side. I think they look pretty okay so far. Now what I have to do is I have to figure out where to make the cuts for the tongue and for the little tootsie to go in. Now I could just copy off of this other moccasin, of course, but I'm not going to do that, because if you're doing the first one, then you don't already have that as a template. So what you need to do is grab that little piece of paper that you drew everything out on. I keep the footprint in there. You don't need that for this. What you do is you take your template, fold it in half, just like that. So here's your template. Fold her in half. And then you fold her in half again, long ways. And then you fold that in half. And then you fold that one more time, like this. And why do you do that? Because that's what everything else says. That's why. And it just seems to work. So, and I've got a pair on my feet that tells me it works, and I have that one over there that tells me it works. So now you take this, and this is where the eyeball one comes in. This is where you're going to make your cut that way, and this is where you're going to make your cut that way. Very simple. Now, of course, I chose not to make that cut flat and straight right here. See, I chose to make an arc there, which of course affected the edge of the part that goes around your ankle right here. That is supposed to be straight, come out and go down, but I don't like that. I like it being curved. Yeah, I think it just looks better when it's on someone's foot. It has a little bit more decoration than just flat straight. If you want it flat and straight, heck, make it flat and straight. No one's gonna bust you down for that. And another thing, if this is going to be the right one, make damn sure that this is going to be the left one, because I could see myself going like this, and then cutting this, and then doing everything and sewing it up, and then trying to put them on. Not me, but my daughter, and then say, "Oh, hey, you've got 2 right feet, right?" No, she doesn't. She has a left foot and a right foot. So make darn sure that you flip it over and do it correctly. Otherwise, you are just not going to believe that you could do something like that. And another thing I'm going to try is, you see this, these threads right here hanging out. These are supposed to be nylon. This thread is nylon. It's waxed nylon. And I have a little bit out here. So I'm going to try to burn those down and make them go into a blob like you do if you were to cut a rope. And that'll burn it down into here, and then just kind of flatten it out. I'm not going to go too crazy on it because I don't want to melt the knot that I put in. But I also don't want to cut those off. If that knot loosens up a little bit and you cut it off too much, it'll pop out. I just don't want the seam to come apart. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark these, and I'll come back and I'll show you how to cut them, and also the back seam. Let me show you what we got here. This is called, I believe it's Senu. And I could be pronouncing that wrong, and I could be thinking of something totally different. I'm almost out of it, and thank God, because it's a pain in the butt to work with. See, this comes off in a ribbon, and then you strip it in half. But what happens is you're stripping it, it'll go around and around and around and around, and you'll have to play grab ass with this thing. I'm going to look for an alternative. I do not want to have to, it takes you 10 minutes to get a strip off. When I want to sew, I don't want to sit there and, I don't know if it's loaded on this spool wrong or what, or if I'm doing it wrong. I can't see how I'm doing it wrong, but, oh, I've done things wrong many, many times. But that aside, it's tough, but man, is it hard to get off the spool. So I laid out this other moccasin, and I made darn sure that it's a left one. All I use is this top. I drew the line that we talked about. I lined this baby up. Let's see if I can give you a little bit better picture here. I lined up the template, the one that we folded in half, and folded in half, and folded in half, so it got down to quarters. And right where this junction here is, I made a little hole, lined it up by eye down here, where center is, and then I took my little pencil, made a little dot, and then I made a little mark down here, and that told me all I needed to know about this line right here. I took my see-through square, boom, 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 made my line, and then this one, this line right here, it depends on your foot and how tight you want it on there, and you can also adjust it this way and this way, but keep in mind that once you cut it, it's cut, and this side of sewing it back up and making another cut, it's there forever. So, you know, just try to follow this. Once you make 1 or 2 of them, you can start monkeying around, but of course I like to monkey around before I make 1 or 2 of them. I made 1 pair and I'm already monkeying around. I'm trying to modify it, make it look different. So this is what I have anyways. I took this line and I went about 5/8 of an inch here, 3/4 or 5/8 of an inch here from the edge, and made my mark going back. And then I took this, put it there, scribed in a mark, put it there, scribed a mark, and now simply cutting it out is the last step before you have to sew up the back. Now let's get you in the shot and I'll show you how I cut this out. Now you don't have to be too terribly careful. I mean, you have to be careful, it's a razor knife, so you do want to be careful. You don't want to cut yourself, but I mean, you don't have to be too terribly careful underneath here. All I do is I put the plastic underneath there, so if I go through, I don't end up cutting the fur on the other side. But I'm not using a whole heck of a lot of pressure. I'm just using a little bit of pressure because this thing right here is sharp. This Alpha Silver, it is sharp. So I'm going to try to do this all in one stroke. Move it a little bit here and get you a good picture of what I'm doing here. It's very similar to when we separated the leather from the, or excuse me, we cut the rabbit and the leather apart. It doesn't have to be super duper perfect, but you know, you do want it to look nice. And I'm just following that line, just like so. Boom. And it does appear as if I'll have to do this twice. And I'm through. And I'm barely touching that plastic underneath. And now I'm going outside the picture. That's okay. There, that side is almost done. I do have a little sticker right there, so there we go. See? That side's done. Now I just have to do this arch on this side. Make sure I'm in the picture. There we go. And let's get that plastic underneath there. Get some of the stuff out of the way. There we go. Get comfortable, because again, whenever you're cutting with this, you have to be comfortable, and for sure watch where your piggies are. You run this blade across your piggies, you're going to be going to the doctor to get stitches. It's like that. We've got a little bit more to go here. There we go. See that? Got a little bit here. Cut that away. And if you find that it's too tight on your foot, you can cut a little bit further this way. And you can cut, let me move this a little bit, you can cut a little bit further this way. But with my daughter's foot, we already tried the other one and it worked fine. Next video we'll show you how to sew on. This is the one that's completed. The other one doesn't have this done, and doesn't have this done. And we'll show you how to do the rest of the sewing as well. The object of the game was not to make this a trilogy video, but there's a lot more information than I thought when I originally started making it. So we'll move on to the next video and show you how to complete this project and have some nice warm moccasins. If you like our content, please subscribe.